Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel at Alexandru. Watch this clip carefully for at least 30-40 seconds, and you will definitely understand this clip. Enjoy! Once again I welcome you to my YouTube channel. Stay with me in the next few minutes, and you will definitely understand the quality of this clip and the interest it holds. In this clip I will talk, discuss, analyze and show you about Neil Armstrong, first man to physically walk on the moon. Okay, let's beat it. Neil Armstrong, born August 5, 1930, Wapakoneta, Ohio, USA, died August 25, 2012, Cincinnati, Ohio, USA, was an American astronaut, test pilot and naval pilot, known as the first man to walk on the moon. His first space flight took place in 1966. In this mission he performed the first docking of two spacecraft, together with pilot David Scott. Armstrong's second and final space mission was as commander of the Apollo 11 landing mission in July 1969. In this famous, One Giant Step for Mankind, Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin descended to the surface of the moon and performed a mission of exploration for 2.5 hours directly on its surface in lunar suits, while their third crew member, Michael Collins, was in the capsule in orbit around the moon. After 21.5 hours on the lunar surface, the Eagle module lifted off and entered lunar orbit, where it docked with a command and service module piloted by Collins. Professional training. He was passionate about flying from an early age, and obtained his pilot's license at the age of 16. In 1947, Armstrong began his studies in aeronautical engineering at Purdue University on a scholarship from the U.S. Navy. His studies were interrupted in 1949 when he was called up to serve in the Korean War. Armstrong flew 78 combat missions during this military conflict. He left the service in 1952 and returned to college. A few years later, Armstrong joined the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NACA, which later became the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. He worked for this government agency in a number of different capacities, including serving as a test pilot and engineer. He tested several high-speed aircraft, including the X-15, which could reach a top speed of 4,000 miles per hour. Life. Armstrong was born near Wapakoneta, Ohio on August 5, 1930, the son of Viola Louise, née Engel, and Stephen Koenig Armstrong. He was of German, Scots, Irish and Scottish descent. He had a younger sister, June, and a younger brother, Dean. His father was an auditor for the Ohio state government, and the family moved repeatedly within the state, living in 16 cities over the next 14 years. Armstrong's love of flying grew during this time, having started at the age of 2 when his father took him to the Cleveland air races. When he was 5 or 6 years old, he experienced his first airplane flight in Warren, Ohio, when he and his father took a ride in a Ford Trimotor, also known as the Tin Goose. The family's last move was in 1944 and took them back to Wapakoneta, where Armstrong attended Bloom High School, and took flying lessons at the Wapakoneta Airfield. He earned a student flight certificate at 16, then went solo in August, all before he had a driver's license. He was an active Boy Scout, and achieved the rank of Eagle Scout. As an adult, he was recognized by the Scouts with the Distinguished Eagle Scout Award and the Silver Buffalo Award. While flying to the moon on July 18, 1969, he sent his greetings to the participants of the Idaho National Scout Jamboree. Among the few personal items he took with him to the moon and back was a World Scout badge. At the age of 17 in 1947, Armstrong began studying aeronautical engineering at Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana. He was the second person in his family to attend college. He was also accepted to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, but decided to go to Purdue after watching a football game between the Purdue Boilermakers and the Ohio State Buckeyes at Ohio Stadium in 1945, in which quarterback Bob DeMuss led them on the Boilermakers to a healthy win over the favored Buckeyes. An uncle who attended MIT had also advised him that he could get a good education without going all the way to Cambridge, Massachusetts. His university education was paid for under the Holloway Plan. Successful applicants committed to 2 years of study, followed by 2 years of flight training, and 1 year of service as an aviator in the U.S. Navy, then completion of the final 2 years of undergrad. Armstrong did not take courses in naval science or join the Naval Reserve Officer Training Corps. Naval service. Armstrong's request from the Navy arrived on January 26, 1949, asking him to report to Naval Air Station Pensacola in Florida for flight training with Class 549. After passing his medicals, he enlisted on the 24th of February 1949. Flight training was carried out in a North American S&J trainer, in which he soloed on the 9th of September 1949. On the 2nd of March 1950, he landed his first aircraft carrier on the USS Cabot, an achievement he considered comparable to his first solo flight. He was then sent to Naval Air Station Corpus Christi in Texas for Grumman F-8F Bearcat training. culminating in a carrier landing on the USS Wright. On August 16, 1950, Armstrong was informed by letter that he was a fully qualified naval aviator. His mother and sister attended the graduation ceremony on the 23rd of August 1950. Armstrong was assigned to Fleet Aircraft Service Squadron 7, Fosren 7, at NAS San Diego, now known as NAS North Island. On the 27th of November 1950, he was assigned to VF-51, an all-aircraft squadron, becoming its youngest officer, and made his first flight in an aircraft, a Grumman F-9F Panther. On the 5th of January 1951, he was promoted to flag on the 5th of June 1951 and landed his first jet carrier on the USS Essex 2 days later. On the 28th of June 1951, Essex had departed for Korea with VF-51 on board to act as ground attack aircraft. VF-51 flew forward to Naval Air Station Barbers Point, Hawaii, where it conducted fighter-bomber training before rejoining the ship in late July. On August 29, 1951, Armstrong saw action in the Korean War as an escort for a photo reconnaissance aircraft over Songjin. 5 days later, on September 3, it flew armed reconnaissance over the main transport and storage facilities south of the village of Majan-ni, west of Wonsan. According to Armstrong, he was making a bombing run at a speed of 350 miles per hour, 560 km/h, when he had 6 feet, 1.8 m, of his wing torn off after colliding with a cable that was strung across the hills like a trap. It was flying 500 feet, 150 m, above the ground when it struck. While there was heavy anti-aircraft fire in the area, none hit Armstrong's aircraft. An initial report to the commanding officer of the Essex said that Armstrong's F-9F Panther had been hit by anti-aircraft fire. The report indicated that he was trying to regain control and collided with a pole, which separated 0.61 m from the Panther's right wing. Other perversions of the story by different authors added that he was only 20 feet, 6.1 m, off the ground and that 3 feet, 0.91 m, of the wing was cut off. Armstrong flew the plane back to friendly territory, but with the loss of aileron, ejection was his only safe option. He intended to bail out and await rescue by Navy helicopters, but his parachute was rejected on land. A jeep driven by a flight school roommate picked him up. It is not known what happened to the wreckage of his plane. F-9F Tubno 125,122. In all, Armstrong flew 78 missions over Korea for a total of 121 hours in the air, a third of them in January 1952, with the final mission at March 5, 1952. Of 492 American servicemen killed in the Korean War, 27 of them were from the Essex on this war cruise. Armstrong received the Air Medal for 20 combat missions, 2 Gold Stars for the next 40, the Korean Service Medal and Commitment Star, the National Defense Service Medal, and the United Nations Korea Medal. Armstrong's regular commission was terminated on February 25, 1952 and became an ensign in the United States Navy Reserve. Upon completion of his combat tour with Essex, he was assigned to a transport squadron, VR-32, in May 1952. He was released from active duty on the 23rd of August 1952, but remained in the reserve and was promoted to lieutenant, junior grade, on the 9th of May 1953. As a reservist, he continued to fly with VF-724 at Naval Air Station Glenview, Illinois, then, after moving to California, with VF-773 at Naval Air Station Los Alamitos. He remained in the reserve for 8 years before resigning from the post on October 21, 1960. Astronaut career. In June 1958, Armstrong was selected for the U.S. Air Force's Manned and Space Soon program, but the Advanced Research Projects Agency, ARPA, canceled its funding on 1 August 1958, and on 5 November 1958 it was replaced by Project Mercury, a civilian project run by NASA. As a civilian NASA test pilot, Armstrong was ineligible to become one of its astronauts at this time, as selection was limited to military test pilots. In November 1960, he was selected as part of the pilot advisory group for the X-20 Dinosaur, a military spaceplane being developed by Boeing for the U.S. Air Force, and on March 15, 1962, he was selected by the U.S. Air Force as one of 7 engineer pilots who would fly the X-20 when it came off the design pad. In April 1962, NASA announced that applications were being sought for NASA's second group of astronauts for Project Gemini, a proposed 2-man spacecraft. This time the selection was open to qualified civilian test pilots. Armstrong visited the Seattle World's Fair in May 1962 and attended a conference there on space exploration that was co-sponsored by NASA. After returning from Seattle on June 4, He applied to become an astronaut. His application arrived a week after the June 1, 1962 deadline, but Dick Day, a flight simulator expert with whom Armstrong worked closely at Edwards, saw the application's late arrival and slipped it into the pile before anyone to observe. At Brooks Air Force Base in late June, Armstrong underwent a medical examination that many of the plaintiffs described as painful and at times apparently unnecessary. NASA's Director of Flight Crew Operations, Dick Slayton, called him Armstrong on September 13, 1962 and asked him if he would be interested in joining NASA's astronaut corps as part of what the press called the New Nine. Without hesitation, Armstrong said yes. The selections were kept secret until 3 days later, although newspaper reports had been circulating since early that year that he would be chosen as the first civilian astronaut. Armstrong was one of 2 civilian pilots selected for this group. The other was Elliot C., another former naval aviator. NASA announced the selection of the second group in a press conference on September 17, 1962. Compared to the Mercury 7 astronauts, they were younger and had more impressive academic credentials. Thank you for watching until the end, and I hope you understood something and liked it.